Welcome to the D-Shift podcast, where we provide inspiration, motivation, and education to help you transition from the challenges of divorce to discover the freedom and ability to live life on your own terms. Are you ready? Let's get this shift started. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the D-Shift podcast. And as you have heard me say many, many times, if you've listened to this podcast, the best recordings are those you do with people that you already know, like, and admire. And so I am honored to have one of those amazing people on the show with me today. I'd like to introduce you to Lumen. She is a transformational trainer, an international speaker, a best-selling author, and she's a certified master life coach. And her focus is really to help people make transitions in life without having to worry about those life-altering moments that come up that sometimes propel us to make those shifts. So, Jay, welcome to the show.
Hi, Marty. Thanks for having me.
Well, I am so glad to have you. And I know that we had a bit of a chance. Jay was one of those amazing people on the influencers cruise that I was on earlier this year. And so we had some time to sit and chat, and you really have a cautionary tale and a very unique story that led you to have this sort of passion for helping people get unstuck and moving out of toxic and bad situations they may find themselves in. So, Jake, tell us a little bit about your story, just whatever you're comfortable sharing.
Well, it's funny that you say that because you spend so many days in court and reliving it. So I can go as deep as somebody would want to, because you eventually, and this might be good for your listeners too, is that eventually you will develop almost like a callus, an emotional detachment to whatever situation you're going through. So, but to recap, I had found myself, from the outside, everything looked great. I had the partner, I had a long-term relationship, I had, a successful job, but it was not the life that I wanted. And I remember sitting on the back porch one day, I was just deflated because it's not what I had imagined for my life. And I felt like I was on a sinking ship. And if I didn't jump, I was going to go down with it. And by that, I mean, my ex had become unemployed once again. And this time he had turned into a full-blown alcoholic. So he was drunk when I came home from the job that I actually hated going to. And he would still be passed out the next morning. And so it was all this negative energy. And the job that I had, it was a toxic work environment that was just full of nepotism. And I was not part of the in crowd. So they didn't like me very much. And I was like, I deserve better. But I felt trapped in my life because since he was unemployed, now I was financially responsible for everything, all the bills. If I quit my job, then if I got a new job, what if I didn't make enough money and I was the only one that was responsible, and I felt guilty if I was going to put him on the street, and all of these internal pressures that I put on myself. And I know we all do it when we run up against something where we're wanting to make change and we're just like, I can't because of this and I can't because of that. And all we see are obstacles. Well, eventually I realized because I had a job, I could pay for him to go move to his family. And I moved him 4 states away. It was a little over 1,000 miles. But I convinced myself that I should keep the job that I hated and wait until the lease ran out. And that way I didn't have to worry about any financial responsibility, anything like that, because I thought I had time. And 2 months later, there was an unexpected knock at the front door, and I opened it, and it was my ex. He'd driven over 1,000 miles, showed up on the doorstep, did not have a history of violence. However, the night ended with his arrest for attempted murder of me. And what came out of that was he had me in the house for 3.5 hours, and there were all kinds of attacks that happened. But at the end of it, I realized if I had actually died that night, and at one point fight or flight did kick in, I wasn't happy. I had convinced myself, I had solved half the problem. I had gotten rid of him, but then I convinced myself to stay exactly where I was because I had time. I could
Right.
wait. I would do the responsible thing. And if I had died that night unexpectedly, I wasn't even happy. And none of us deserve a life that, when it is our time, and a lot of times we don't know when that time is, when our time on earth is up, it's up. And a lot of times we don't know when that is, but it takes this life altering event, a loss, a tragedy, something like this that happened to me, for us to be like, oh, wait a minute, I need to get busy living my life.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So can you tell us, and without, getting into too many of the weedy details, but I do
Hmm.
really think it's important because I hear women all the time that say, I don't have to worry. There's not going to be a problem here. Like, what do you think, or were there any red flags or signs that you notice now looking back that you thought, well, maybe he wasn't as benign as he appeared to be, or was it something completely out of the blue?
For me, it really was something completely out of the blue. Have you ever heard of or seen that the TV show called Snapped?
No.
So Snapped it's actually about women who snap. They basically have a mental break and they murder their spouse. And so I say it's the reverse because that show focuses on women. But I say it's the reverse. I don't know what got into his brain that I literally have no idea.
Right.
He just got in the car and he had packed the car like he was moving back in. And, I knew that he was struggling with the breakup. And honestly, I think part of that was also the alcohol
Sure.
mixed part of it. He was unemployed. I basically, we'd been together for a number of years. And on one hand, maybe he felt like I ripped his life out from underneath him because I was the last thing that he had, but it wasn't, here when it's not the right relationship.
Right.
It doesn't necessarily mean there's something specifically wrong or that somebody did something or, you know, there doesn't necessarily have to be anything specific, but you just know.
Right.
It's like,
Yeah.
we gave it a good go,
Yeah.
but this just, it's not for me.
Yeah. And you were basically held for over 3 hours in your home, by him. And how did you eventually get away, or how did the police eventually get there? Were you able to get away and call the police, or did a neighbor or a friend, or how did they get alerted?
It was, so I told you at one point, fight or flight kicked in. And without going into too many details, um, basically, I was trying to kick out a window, to get anybody's attention.
Right.
Apparently, no, we were in a condo, so I had neighbors on either side of me, but apparently nobody was home.
Oh no.
Uh, but once your natural instincts, if anybody ever finds themselves in an unexpected situation like this, your natural instincts will kick in. Um, and I started asking permission for everything. Um, like there would be an attack and then he would stop. I don't know what it was, why he would stop. I didn't understand the entire evening. I
Right.
still don't to this day.
Right.
Um, but there would be something he would do and then he would stop. And after I didn't make it out, like I tried to make a break for it and I didn't get out. And that's when fight or flight kicked in. And after that, when he stopped after that particular event, um, I just started asking permission for everything. I needed to blow my nose, which meant I needed to go to the bathroom and get a tissue. I asked for permission. He came with me, which we lived together, so it's not that big of a, it
Yeah.
wasn't that big of a deal. I needed to go to the bathroom. I asked permission to use the toilet. I asked literally permission before I moved because I did not know what he would. I just had no idea what he
What was
was going to
setting them
do or
off?
what to
Yeah.
expect
Yeah.
next, or I didn't know what was going to happen. And at some point, he started talking like we were going to have our future together, and I just started agreeing with everything that he was saying. And I'm like, we can go do that. And we can go, like, we were making plans for the future. And I, I don't know. And at one point, he tried to break my wrist because he wanted my cell phone. And so he had that. And he, he just decided at one point that he was done and he could go, I guess, because I had agreed enough with him. And so he got up and went to walk out, and I said, "Here, I'll walk you out," as if nothing had happened.
Right.
And I said, "I'll walk you outside." And I walked him out, and it was just like a little short sidewalk to where the cars were parked in front of the condos. And I said, I'd really like to get my cell phone back if you'll give it to me. And he said, "No, I don't think so." And I said, "Okay, well," and not that would have mattered, but I said, "Well, if I want to get in touch with you, I don't have a way to do that."
Right.
And so he said he thought about it, and as he was thinking, I said, I don't know where you're staying. I don't know where you are. So if you're worried about me calling the cops, like, I don't have anything to tell them because I don't know where you are.
Right.
And he was just like, "Okay." And he gave me my cell phone back. And then he went and he got in his car and he left. I ran inside. I grabbed my keys, my belt, and my flip flops, and I got out. And so I did call the cops. But the minute he left, so did I.
Yeah. 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 Well, thank you for sharing that because I do think it's a cautionary tale, right? And we all know that most relationships don't end like this, but you had no red flags. And this is what not surprises me, but I've heard this before. I used to work in a domestic violence shelter, and I'd heard that before where women said, "I was married for 20 years. There was never an issue with domestic abuse, violence in our life.
Right.
And then all of a sudden one night they just got like horribly beaten or their kids got beaten or something." So yeah, it's almost like I get that whole idea of snapped. But let's switch to something more positive. Rather than just becoming this victim of this event, you really have used this as a way to help others. So talk a little bit about this whole idea of transforming your life, creating these bucket lists and doing all these wonderful things in your life. And how do you get started if you're feeling stuck?
Well, one of the problems when I was putting all that internal pressure on myself is because I didn't know what I wanted. So I didn't have a goal to aim for. I didn't even know how to figure it out. But I'm glad you brought that up because I do. I like to say I flip your switch. And it's a matter of flipping the switch on your thinking, because I didn't know it at the time. But really what I had done was started going back to my core values and remembering things that lit me up inside when I was trying to figure out what I was going to do for work now. Because everything that I had tried to avoid by staying where I was, as far as not breaking the lease and not having to, worry about finances until I could start my life later when the lease ran out or whatever. Well, now all these things became my problems, and they were actually compounded because now I had to go to court once a month, and I had to pay 2 leases because I couldn't break the lease. It just got very complicated. But I had the balls to get out of the relationship.
Yes. Yeah.
And then convinced myself to stay where I was. And this was literally it was a literal punch in the face of You had the balls to get out of the relationship, and then you just quit. Like, you were supposed to go live your life, and you stopped halfway. Um, but as I started looking for new work and what I wanted to do, when I graduated high school, you know, how many of us graduate high school and know exactly what we're going to do? Well,
Not
a lot
many.
of not many. And so a lot of us don't know exactly. It's like, oh, well, you have to go to college. Well, we go to college because somebody told us that that's what we're supposed to do. They're like, this is the supposed to path to adulthood. And so you just do what people tell you to do. But you figured out your life once before. When you graduated high school, you put one foot in front of the other. You figured out what made you happy. Maybe you did go to college and then maybe you dropped out, whether it disappointed somebody or not, doesn't matter. If that's what worked for you and that's what was going to make you happy, you figured that out and you just kept doing it. So obviously I figured out how to start my life once before. I can figure it out how to do it again. And it's this way of, we don't give ourselves enough credit for things that we've done, and starting to look at things slightly differently to be able to leverage confidence to go into the unknown, whether we're wanting to learn something new, whether we're wanting to make a change in our life, whatever, doesn't matter. Perfect examples are learning how to walk, learning how to feed yourself, learning how to drive a car. These are not things that we knew how to do the minute we were born, but we eventually learned how to do them. They're all very complex. If you know how to drive a stick shift, that's even worse than just learning how to drive a car. But you don't, you know, most people are like, well, of course I learned how to drive a car. It's just what you do. Well, not everybody learns how to drive a car. And you do have a choice. Some people could just be like, yep, nope, not doing that one. I'll just take the bus, or, you know, Uber everywhere, or whatever, maybe take the train, walk, whatever. But for those of us who did learn how to drive, we didn't jump in the seat and go 80 miles an hour down the interstate. We had to learn how to do it. We had to learn how to make mistakes. We were all very nervous because it's like, oh my gosh, I have to do this and this and this and this and that and that. Oh,
Exactly. Yeah.
but now how many times are we going down the interstate and we look down, we're like, oh my gosh, I'm going way too fast. And it's like, okay, is there a cop? Because I was not paying attention. And it's this very, if you think about it, it's a very complex skill.
Yeah.
And now you do it without even thinking about it. And so when you're nervous about starting something new and you just look at it and you're like, oh my gosh, there's so many pieces to this, I'm never going to figure it out. But look at the things that you've already done in your life that you did already figure out, that were very complex, that were new, that you didn't know about. And you can leverage confidence from that. So it's not so much fake it till you make it. It's, well, I did this, this, and this, and all this is new, but I didn't know how to do all these things before either.
Yeah.
So now I can do this.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, because I have a real problem with that whole fake it till you make it thing. Because to me, this fake it till you make it goes hand in hand with imposter syndrome. Because if you're trying to do things you have no ability to do, of course you're going to feel like you can't do them.
Right.
You'd be sort of a sociopath if you thought you could. Like, would definitely not be grounded in reality. So I really love this idea, Jay. What you're talking about is to look back at all the accomplishments that you have made in your life, be they seemingly small things like driving a car, but really take a look at, that's a huge accomplishment. You know, if you think back to how you felt the first time you ever got behind a wheel of a vehicle, or
exactly.
So I think this is phenomenal, and I think this is such a grounded approach for making change, rather than just like, well, I've always, you know, especially for people that are changing jobs or changing relationships or changing whatever, there is going to be a learning curve, a pretty steep one probably, to get to where they want to be. So,
And you can just look back at what used to make you happy and figure out a way to bring that into your life. And there's a wide variety of jobs. And at the end of the day, you live your life for yourself. You can share it with your spouse, your partner, your family, your friends, your furry animal children. It doesn't matter who you share your life with, but at some point, everybody around you is going to be gone. And it needs to be your life that you lived. And you might disappoint some people along the way, but as long as it's your life that you're living without a regret, then that's what really matters. So it doesn't matter if you're like, I want to go be a yo-yo instructor as my career because I'm really good at yo-yo. I personally am not. I can't do yo-yo. But as an example of like some kind of out there idea, but there are people who compete regionally and for countries as yo-yo tricksters.
Right.
Well, somebody needs to teach them. So if you're really good, and that's an exaggerated example, of course, but that's what I mean is like if you are just going to take this random detour in your life, have it. Be confident in it because if that's what's going to light you up inside, if your last day on earth, you're going to be like, you know what, I was living, then I'm good. We'll always want more time with family and friends. There's nothing we can do about that.
Right.
But live your life that is lighting you up inside.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that message. And it's so, so, so important. Um, we're almost out of time, but I do want to ask you, other than kind of just talking yourself into this, are there any specific steps that if somebody's sitting here going, you know, yeah, I don't want to have to experience something like Jay experienced to make this transition, but I know I'm not in a good job. I know I'm not in the best relationship. I know I don't have a connection with my community, or maybe I don't feel, maybe my religious organization isn't meeting my needs. Like if you're feeling like you're really just stuck in something in life, what's one simple step that somebody can use to get going other than talking themselves, kind of creating people always create those pros and cons lists, right? Why should I stay? Why should I go? Those kind of things. What's something that you encourage people to think about or to utilize to get them on the path they want to go?
I think the hardest thing that I learned was when I was putting so much internal pressure on myself to figure it out. It's because I kept thinking. I was like, if I think about this hard enough, long enough, I'll think of the answer and then I can do it. And I needed to have it all perfectly sorted before I did anything because what if I screwed it up?
Right.
And that's the opposite of what you need to do. If you are like, you know what, I think this might make me happy, go try it. Go experiment. You will learn. This does make me happy. That does not make me happy. I tried oysters. Oysters do not make me happy. Chocolate, love it. Oysters, not so much. But, I didn't know that until I tried the oysters. So it's the same thing in life. Go try it. If you fail, it's okay. We've all done lots of things that we failed at. Have a laugh.
Right.
Be gentle with yourself. And you will learn, but it's taking action. And then you will think, oh, yes, I do like that. No, I don't. I want more of this. I don't want more of that. And part of it is, have you ever done something in your life for the very first time and you immediately fell in love with it?
Mm-hmm.
So that, we just to touch briefly on a bucket list. We all have these goals and dreams that we want to achieve. But you wouldn't know to put whatever it was, that experience, that sport, that whatever, on your bucket list as something that you couldn't live without until you did it. But before you did it, it was unknown.
Right.
And the only way you're going to know what really lights you up inside is by going and doing, whether it was something that you did as a kid and now you're just bringing it back into your life, or maybe you haven't found it yet.
Yeah.
But the only way to find it is to just go out there and try.
Wonderful. I think that's great. Out of all of the stuff that we've talked about, Jay, what do you think is sort of the big idea you want people to think about when they go on about their busy days?
We're basically talking about happiness right now. And there are a lot of problems in the world, major big problems in the world. And when we sit and think about our own happiness and think, yeah, there's bigger problems in the world than, my life is okay. Why should I be so focused on my happiness? Well, people who aren't living their happiest life, their best life, the one that they enjoy, the one that lights them up inside, they have a tendency to disconnect. And even if you're just at that meh level, on some level, you're going to be reserved. You're going to maybe be a homebody, which not that there's anything wrong with that, but you'll be disconnected. You won't be sharing your light, your gifts. Maybe you have a cure for some random world disease that nobody even knows about, but because you're not happy, you're not exploring your life. You're just kind of settling back into your comfort zone, and you're just like, this is what being an adult is, and this is what my life is. So here I am.
Yeah.
But that's why it's important, because when you do light up from within, you create a ripple effect. It vibrates to other people around you. And then that's how our own personal happiness actually is a global issue.
Yeah. I agree with you. I love that. That's a great way to wrap this up. But before we do go, you have a gift for everybody. Can you tell us a little bit about the opportunity that people have to grab this and what they can do with it?
Sure. So you can find it at resumeyourlife.com or resumeyourlife.com. It's actually a play on words, and it's a free self-assessment that you can go through. It will help you reconnect with your core values if you haven't explored those for a while. And it will also pull out some parts of your past to help you start thinking about, oh, I did this and this makes me unique, and I have this experience and there's all these little mini moments of our life and that's how you can kind of supersize your life experience, which the unknown bucket list is the bucket list of life that you're already living.
Right.
And so it helps you kind of uncover that. And then once you have this little collection, you can leverage confidence, like what we were just talking about before. So.
Wonderful. And so please go grab that gift. It's a fantastic thing. And if you know somebody that's stuck in something, get them to watch the podcast and then let them download this because it's really going to help you. And Jay is a phenomenal resource for anybody who's looking to make these life transformations. Jay, if people do want to reach out, find out more about what you do or work with you, what's the best way to find out all your goodness?
Well, you pretty much reach me at The Unknown Bucket List. I'm on the social media channels as The Unknown Bucket List. That's my website. If you go to resumeyourlife.com, it'll lead you back to The Unknown Bucket List. So it's all connected.
And wonderful. And I will make sure all that information is in the show notes. Jay, thank you so much for being here. It was so phenomenal to talk to you as always.
Thanks for having me, Marty. And it's good to see you again.
Thank you. You too. And hey, for everybody that's listening in, I hope that you enjoyed this because like I say, talking to Jay is just so uplifting. I feel inspired and I feel excited, and I'm going to go grab her download and do some work this afternoon. So take care. Have a wonderful rest of your week. And don't forget to tune in for the next episode of The D Shift. Thanks for listening and supporting the D Shift podcast. If you would like to attend live trainings by our amazing guests and have a chance to ask questions and get answers from our experts, join the D Shift crew. For more details and to sign up, head on over to www.divorcecoachforwomen and click on the podcast page.